There are people in this world who are not easily explained by logic or understood by surface-level observation. They do not come into our lives with fanfare or demand applause. Instead, their presence is quiet but powerful, like the gentle hush before dawn or the soft light that filters through trees after a storm. These individuals carry a different kind of energy, one not born of ego or ambition, but of divine appointment. They are often called earth angels, not because they are perfect or without pain, but because they reflect the presence of something holy and eternal. Their lives are marked not by what they take, but by what they give, not by how loud they speak, but by how deeply they listen. They are the rare souls who see others, not through the lens of judgment or gain, but with eyes full of compassion and understanding. These kinds of souls are rare. They are not easily found, and they are not randomly scattered across the earth. They are chosen, selected by divine wisdom for specific missions and seasons. When the world grows cold, when hearts harden under the weight of betrayal, bitterness, and pride, these souls are sent like warm rays of morning light to remind others that love still lives. They are often sent into broken places, into homes where peace has long vanished, into hearts that no longer trust anyone's affection. They are sent not to judge, but to heal, not to control, but to serve. And their power lies not in force, but in faithfulness. When such a person enters your life, it is not coincidence. It is grace. It is God looking at someone's story and deciding they are ready to be shown another way, a better way. But this grace is not always recognized. Many people do not see the treasure because it comes wrapped in humility. They do not understand the value because they are too busy chasing noise. And so, they mishandle the very thing that was sent to heal them. They abuse what they should have protected. They mock what they should have revered. They treat this rare soul like an object, a convenience, a placeholder. They forget that this soul is not theirs to control, but God's to send and retrieve. The rarity of such individuals lies not only in their gentleness, but in their strength. To continue loving in the face of rejection, to keep offering light even when surrounded by darkness, that is not weakness. It is divine resilience. They pour out love without demanding repayment. They stay longer than others would. They forgive more times than they should. And yet, it is not because they are blind or naive. It is because they are driven by something higher, something eternal. They are not merely reacting to the people around them. They are obeying the one who sent them. Their rarity also comes from the cost they have paid. Earth angels are not born in comfort. They have been through deep pain. They have been broken, refined, and tested. Their tenderness is not softness, it is wisdom. Their quiet strength is not fear, it is reverence. They know what it is to be discarded, yet they choose to make others feel seen. They know what it is to be silenced, yet they speak hope into dying hearts. They are the ones who have every reason to harden, yet they remain open. That kind of soul does not walk the earth in multitudes. That kind of love is not mass-produced. And when such a person enters the life of someone who cannot recognize this rarity, it becomes a tragedy not just of relationship, but of spirit. For to reject such a soul is not merely to reject a human. It is to turn away from the divine lesson they carried. It is to ignore the healing God was offering. And once that moment is gone, it cannot be duplicated. You cannot rewind time and ask heaven to send the same miracle twice. God's gifts are timely and intentional, and they do not come in repeat cycles. There is no replacement for a person who was sent as a once-in-a-lifetime expression of grace. When someone walks into your life carrying a heart full of kindness, truth, and healing, it's not just a person arriving. It is often an answer to your silent prayers, a form of divine grace sent from above. But when the heart that receives them is full of pride, entitlement, and self-worship, that grace can be dangerously misunderstood. Narcissists often live in a world where they believe everything exists for their pleasure, their praise, and their elevation. They expect loyalty without giving it, demand affection without offering depth, and interpret love as a tool to feed their ego. When a person sent by God, a rare, deeply compassionate soul, enters that world, the narcissist does not see a blessing. They see an object. They view this divine soul not as a gift, but as another source of supply. But what the narcissist fails to realize is that they are not simply engaging with a person. They are engaging with a vessel of God's mercy. This is not merely a relationship or companionship for their convenience. It is a sacred opportunity, a spiritual crossroad. When they manipulate, gaslight, betray, or belittle such a soul, they are not only harming a human being, they are rejecting a sacred moment of encounter. The narcissist may see it as control, dominance, or winning the game, but heaven sees it as rebellion against grace. The rejection of a person sent by God is, in fact, a rejection of God's hand reaching out in mercy. There is a grave misunderstanding in the heart of the narcissist. They think they are dealing with ordinary people, playing an ordinary game, repeating patterns that have served them well before. But there are some souls who do not belong to the usual script. These souls are not here to participate in games, but to disrupt them. They are meant to reveal the emptiness behind the narcissist's mask. Their love is meant to disarm, not entertain. Their truth is meant to awaken, not flatter. When the narcissist misuses or discards them, it is like spitting on a miracle. And such an action is never without spiritual consequence. To abuse someone who was sent to heal you is to abuse the healing itself. To devalue someone who carried your redemption is to slam the door on your own deliverance. The narcissist often believes they can simply replace what they break, that love is always available somewhere else. That admiration will flow endlessly from new faces. But what they miss is the holy uniqueness of what they've destroyed. The earth angel was not part of a cycle. They were an interruption, a chance to break the pattern, a hand extended from heaven. And when that hand is slapped away, the consequences go far beyond human disappointment. They enter the realm of divine judgment. God does not send people into our lives randomly. He sends the right people at the right time for the right purpose. The narcissist is often so blinded by their own image that they fail to see the spiritual magnitude of such timing. They think they are simply mistreating someone, too sensitive, someone too emotional, someone too available. But what they're actually doing is rejecting the very thing that could have changed them. The narcissist doesn't just hurt the earth angel. They rob themselves of transformation. They silence the very voice that was sent to expose their deception, heal their brokenness, and reconnect them with something higher than themselves. There is a sacredness in moments when heaven intervenes in someone's life. Those moments are not disposable. They are once-in-a-lifetime offerings. The narcissist, in their arrogance, believes they are the center of the story and that the angel was lucky to be near them. But in truth, it was the other way around. The angel was not blessed by their presence. The narcissist was blessed by theirs. And now that blessing has been squandered. It was not taken seriously. It was mocked, mistreated, and thrown aside like it was common. But nothing God sends with love is ever common. It is holy, and to misuse it is to reject the holiness itself. The narcissist believes they can move on, charm someone else, and regain what they lost through duplicity and control. But what they lost was not a person. They lost a divine opportunity. And that kind of loss echoes. It echoes in silence, in emptiness, in the loneliness that no flattery can soothe. It echoes in the realization that they touched something sacred and treated it as ordinary, that they were face to face with God's mercy, and they turned away. Grace is one of the most misunderstood treasures given by God. It is not a reward for perfection, nor a decoration for the worthy. It is a gift extended to the broken, the lost, the proud, and the undeserving. It comes to rescue, to awaken, to invite transformation. But what few understand is that grace, though free, is not without limit in how long it waits. It is not something that remains where it is mocked, misused, or treated as a license to continue in destruction. Grace comes in love, but it also departs in justice. When God sends someone into a person's life to reveal His grace, a soul full of kindness, sacrifice, truth, and spiritual depth, He is offering a rare and sacred opportunity. But when that person is dishonored repeatedly, God does not ask them to stay forever in the presence of dishonor. The narcissist often assumes that because they got away with manipulation once, they can do it again. Because they were forgiven once, they will always be forgiven. Because the earth angel stayed after the first lie, the first betrayal, the first wound, they will always stay. They view grace as weakness, mercy as naivety, and loyalty as something to exploit. Their behavior grows bolder, more toxic, more selfish, because they believe the supply will never run out. But what they don't realize is that behind the patience of the earth angel stands the holiness of God, and He does not allow His messengers to be endlessly trampled. There comes a point when God says, "That is enough." Not because He has run out of compassion, but because He sees the heart behind the behavior. He sees that the narcissist is not confused. They are choosing. He sees that the apologies are not repentance. They are manipulation. He sees that the pain caused is not accidental. It is calculated. And He will not allow His grace to be mocked. When God sends someone who carries light into a dark heart, it is a divine test. What will they do with this light? Will they welcome it, cherish it, and allow it to warm their coldness? Or will they try to control it, dim it, and use it for their own gain? If they choose the latter, God does not continue sending more light. He withdraws it. This is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of holiness. God does not keep placing His sacred things into hands that repeatedly crush them. He does not ask the earth angel to remain in a place where their soul is being drained and their value denied. He loves them too much for that. The narcissist may believe that they still have time, still have control, still have the upper hand. But when grace leaves, it often leaves quietly. There is no dramatic announcement, no thunder from the skies. It simply lifts. The earth angel, once full of hope and second chances, begins to withdraw. The energy of heaven that once filled the room when they spoke begins to fade. The peace they carried no longer surrounds the narcissist. What once felt like an endless supply of love and presence suddenly disappears. and the narcissist does not even realize why. But eventually they feel it. The emptiness, the silence, the absence of the light they once mocked. They try to replace it, to manufacture it with new faces, but nothing feels the same. No one gives what the angel gave. No one prays for them in secret. No one carries their burdens without being asked. No one sees through their masks with both clarity and compassion. And slowly, the realization creeps in. They were given something sacred, and they destroyed it. They were entrusted with a treasure, and they treated it like trash. And now it is gone, not because it failed, but because it was retrieved. God's grace does not remain where it is used as a weapon. He does not allow the hearts of His servants to be battered for the entertainment of those who refuse to grow. There is a boundary in heaven that says, "My child has done enough. They have stayed long enough. They have forgiven enough." And at that moment, what once felt like an endless season of mercy closes. The narcissist believes they still have time, but the clock has already struck its final hour. The angel is gone. The grace has lifted, and heaven is silent, not in cruelty, but in completion. When God sends someone into another's life to reflect His love, it is never by accident. That person is a carrier of light, of hope, of unseen strength. Their presence is meant to be healing, not loud, nurturing, not demanding. They may not look extraordinary at first glance, but they carry something that the world cannot give, a divine presence, a purity that reveals itself over time through sacrifice, faithfulness, and unwavering truth. This person, often referred to as an earth angel, walks in humility, but their spirit has been refined through fire. They have known suffering and betrayal, and yet they have chosen to remain soft, forgiving, and full of compassion. This makes them dangerous to the narcissist, not because they fight with rage or manipulation, but because they disrupt illusions with love. The narcissist, whose world revolves around control and image, is immediately drawn to the light of such a person, not because they want to be changed by it, but because they want to own it, possess it, use it. They mistake spiritual strength for emotional dependency. They see deep empathy and mistake it for weakness. They begin to think that this person, who forgives 70 times 7 and gives without keeping score, will never walk away. They underestimate the soul who was sent not for romance or drama, but for revelation. The earth angel is not sent to feed the narcissist's ego, but to mirror their condition. Their very presence begins to expose what is hidden, to bring to the surface the shadows the narcissist tries so hard to suppress. At first, the narcissist might try to emulate the light. They may speak of change, of growth, of soul connections and destiny. But it is all performance. It is a mimicry, an attempt to absorb the shine without embracing the cost of transformation. They want the benefits of proximity to the divine without surrendering their self-idolatry. So, when the earth angel begins to challenge the lies, not by yelling or fighting, but by standing firm in truth, the narcissist feels threatened, not because the angel has done anything wrong, but because they represent everything the narcissist refuses to become: authentic, vulnerable, God-dependent, and unafraid of truth. This resistance turns into resentment. The narcissist, unable to control the earth angel's light, seeks to dim it. They begin a slow campaign of confusion and degradation. They withhold affection, twist words, project blame. They use silence as punishment, kindness as bait, and validation as a weapon. Their goal becomes not only to drain the angel's energy, but to make them question their own divine nature. They want the mirror broken because it shows them too much. And still the earth angel remains, for a time. Because love endures. Because they were sent not to abandon, but to reveal. Because they hope. But even the strongest vessels grow weary when poured out and never refilled. Even the most compassionate hearts feel pain when they are treated as tools. And the soul that was sent to help begins to bleed under the weight of continuous dishonor. Still, they do not retaliate. They do not seek revenge. They grieve, not only for themselves, but for the narcissist's blindness. They weep in secret, not because they are weak, but because they can feel the weight of the opportunity slipping away. They know that they were not sent to stay forever, but to serve a moment of divine possibility. And when that moment is squandered, they feel it. They sense the release in their spirit, the quiet voice saying, "You have done what you were sent to do." The narcissist never realizes what they had. They confuse availability with need, gentleness with dependence. They do not understand that the earth angel stayed, not because they were trapped, but because they were obedient to something higher. They were there to reflect God's love, to show that even the hardest heart could be touched, that even the darkest life could be lit. But once that mission is complete, or once it is made clear that the heart will not receive it, God calls his messenger home, not always physically, but emotionally, spiritually, energetically. The light begins to turn inward, the angel begins to heal, and the narcissist is left with the absence they created. Not because the angel changed, but because they were sent to reflect, not remain. God does not create replicas of divine assignments. When he sends someone into a life, especially someone who carries healing, compassion, truth, and spiritual presence, he does it with precision. That person is not one of many. They are the only one meant for that specific purpose, in that specific season. The earth angel was sent not just as a comfort, but as a catalyst. Their arrival was meant to awaken, to stir the conscience, to soften a heart grown hard with pride and self-absorption. They were not just there to love, they were there to disrupt, to challenge the false identity that had been carefully constructed. They offered a different kind of love, one that wasn't transactional, but transformational. And that kind of love does not come often, and it is not sent in duplicates. The narcissist believed they had all the time in the world. They saw the angel's patience as a permanent position. They assumed that forgiveness was a guarantee, and that divine kindness would always wait. But this was never a permanent arrangement. It was a divine window, a chance, a wake-up call in the form of a living, breathing soul. But when the narcissist used that opportunity for control, when they chose manipulation over honesty, deceit over repentance, and dominance over mutuality, they were not just damaging a relationship. They were rejecting heaven's intervention. And heaven does not repeat itself for those who deliberately choose blindness. There is no second version of someone who was sent to be a one-time message. The earth angel was sent as the mirror, the voice, the living parable that was meant to confront the narcissist's illusions. And when that message is scorned, heaven does not create a substitute. God does not send another angel to take the place of the one who was wounded, drained, and dishonored. The narcissist, in their delusion, believes they will find someone else with the same depth, the same patience, the same unconditional heart. But what they encounter instead is an endless cycle of shallow reflections. imitations that never satisfy, people who flatter but do not see them, people who comply but do not care, and in their quietest moments they begin to feel the absence, not of a person, but of an encounter with something sacred. The angel was not perfect, but they were rare. They were not meant to make the narcissist feel powerful. They were meant to make them feel seen, and being seen was what the narcissist feared most. So they turned the mirror away, shattered it with criticism, and buried their guilt beneath layers of false superiority. But in doing so, they forfeited their moment. They told heaven, "I don't want this gift." And heaven, being holy, does not argue. The angel was not assigned to chase, to beg, or to keep knocking on a locked door. Once their purpose was fulfilled, or refused, they were withdrawn, not as punishment, but as a boundary. What the narcissist never expected was that the silence would grow louder than the angel's presence, that the void would feel heavier than the constant attention they once took for granted. They believed they had all the control, but in truth they were the ones being offered mercy, and that mercy came in human form, full of grace, full of spiritual fire. They were given a companion who reflected God's love in ways they didn't understand at the time, and perhaps still don't. But eventually, they notice that no one sees them that way anymore. No one prays over their name. No one discerns their soul behind their words. No one speaks truth in love. Only echoes of the same broken patterns, only mirrors of their own performance. The earth angel was not replaceable because they were not manufactured. They were sent. And what is sent from God carries with it a signature of heaven, a uniqueness that cannot be mimicked by human effort. The narcissist had their once-in-a-lifetime encounter and discarded it, not because they didn't recognize its beauty, but because they thought they were entitled to better. But there is no better than what was custom designed by the Creator for that exact soul. That moment of divine interruption, of holy presence, of undeserved grace will never be repeated. And when it's gone, it leaves a silence that even the loudest applause can't fill. It's easy to believe, especially after enduring emotional damage, that you were abandoned, discarded, or replaced. The narcissist made sure you felt disposable, like your love was insignificant, and your presence could be exchanged with someone more useful to their ego. But that perception is not reality. It is a carefully constructed illusion built by someone who thrives on making others feel small so they can feel large. In truth, you were not thrown away, you were rescued. The pain you feel from the loss is real, but it's not the pain of being rejected by God. It's the pain of being extracted from a battlefield where your soul was being quietly destroyed. What looked like an ending was, in fact, a divine act of mercy. You were sent into the life of the narcissist as a divine offering, carrying healing, wisdom, and a love that was meant to awaken, not enable. You offered more than affection. You offered truth. You gave more than companionship. You gave spiritual light. You stood in places where others fled. You covered them with prayer when they covered you with blame. You forgave without keeping count, and you kept showing up when every signal told you to run. Your heart held the kind of grace that only comes from being broken yourself and rebuilt by God's hand. And yet, despite your presence, your patience, and your love, the narcissist chose to devalue what you brought. They chose manipulation over transparency, control over connection, superiority over submission to God's work in their life. They had in their midst a living reflection of grace, and they treated it like a mirror to shatter instead of a message to cherish. But even in their cruelty, you stayed longer than most. You endured seasons of confusion, spiritual warfare, isolation, and emotional abandonment, not because you were weak, but because you believed in redemption. You believed in the power of love to change even the most hardened heart. And while that belief is noble, God saw that the cost to your soul was becoming too high. He watched as you lost pieces of yourself, trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved. He saw your silent prayers, your tears behind closed doors, the way you still defended them when no one else could see what you were carrying. He saw that the person you were sent to help was using your light to cast longer shadows instead of finding their way home. And so, He stepped in, not because you failed, but because you fulfilled what you were sent to do. The outcome was never in your control, only your obedience. You were sent to be a bridge, not a martyr. You were assigned a purpose, not a life sentence. And once your assignment was done, heaven pulled you back, not as rejection, but as protection. The exit didn't feel holy. It felt like loss. It felt like defeat. But sometimes, rescue feels like being ripped away from something you thought was worth saving. Sometimes, love looks like doors being closed that you begged God to keep open. But God does not abandon His faithful. He does not leave His earth angels to be devoured by those who refuse to change. When someone persistently chooses pride over humility, deception over honesty, and self-idolatry over surrender, God will not allow His servant to remain where they are only being harmed. The very moment you were removed, you were actually being honored. He honored your heart by not allowing it to be shattered any further. He honored your soul by not letting it remain in a place where it was constantly drained. He honored your calling by releasing you from a mission that had become corrupted by someone else's rebellion. The narcissist may have made you feel unworthy, but heaven whispered a different message. You are too precious to be wasted here. You were not discarded. You were delivered. And the space they now feel, the silence that echoes around their self-made kingdom, is not abandonment from you. It's the absence of God's mercy that you once carried. They don't just miss you. They miss what you brought. What they abused is what they now crave, but it is no longer available to them. You were never lost in that connection. You were preserved. Because earth angels are rare, and heaven does not allow them to remain where their wings are being clipped and their light is being extinguished. You were not just a person passing through someone's life. You were a divine interruption, a once-in-a-lifetime gift chosen by God to reveal light in the midst of deep spiritual darkness. Your love, patience, and presence were not ordinary, and neither was your assignment. The narcissist believed they could control, manipulate, and discard something holy, mistaking your grace for weakness and your forgiveness for foolishness. But heaven keeps record of what man dishonors, and God does not let His messengers be trampled endlessly. You were not removed because you were unwanted. You were pulled away because you were too valuable to remain where your light was only being drained. There will be no replacement, no second chance at what they rejected. You were the warning, the wake-up call, the miracle. And now that you're gone, so is the grace they never recognized. You were a once-in-a-lifetime gift, and God is not giving them another earth angel. What if I told you that you were never just a chapter in their story? You were the divine turning point they were never meant to repeat. You weren't sent to be loved the way the world loves. You were sent as a sacred interruption, a once-in-a-lifetime encounter with God's mercy, and they threw it away thinking it would come again.